Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. Rick Mason slammed shoulder first into a vendor's stall, sending exotic fruits rolling across the dusty ground like purple grenades. The merchant's curses followed him in 3 different languages, but Rick didn't slow down. Couldn't slow down. Not with half the Argon City Guard on his ass and a plasma burn sizzling through his jacket. Left, the ring on his finger commanded, its voice like gravel mixed with aristocratic disdain, unless you prefer dying in a fruit stand like some common tourist. Rick veered left, vaulting over a pen of squawking livestock that looked like 6-legged chickens crossed with nightmares. You said this was a milk run, Spark. Easy job, you said. What part of angry mob with plasma rifles screams easy to you? The part where you decided to seduce the Chancellor's daughter instead of stealing the data cube like a professional. The voice of the Spark somehow managed to sound both amused and disappointed. Really, Richard, thinking with your... Not now! Rick dove under a hover cart, plasma bolts searing the air where his head had been. The marketplace erupted in chaos as civilians scattered, their screams mixing with the whine of energy weapons. 2 suns beat down mercilessly, turning the red stone plaza into an oven. He rolled to his feet, boots skidding on loose gravel as he sprinted toward the main thoroughfare. The ring pulsed hot against his skin, a warning he'd learned to trust over their 3 years together. More guards ahead, cutting off his escape route. Destiny approaches, Spark intoned dramatically. Destiny can kiss my... Rick's words died as he burst into the Grand Plaza and stopped dead. The crowd hit him like a physical wall. Hundreds, maybe thousands, packed into the amphitheater-style square. They faced a raised platform where someone had erected a thick metal post. The smell hit him next, sweat, anticipation, and underneath it all, the copper tang of blood sport. But it was the woman chained to the post that made his world tilt sideways. She stood tall despite her bonds, chin raised in defiance. Her skin was a deep violet that seemed to shimmer in the dual sunlight, like looking at space through amethyst. Pink hair, no, not pink, more like rose gold, fell in matted waves past her shoulders. Even from 50 yards away, even bloodied and bound, she was stunning. Not pretty in some delicate flower way, but fierce. Beautiful like a storm was beautiful, like a blade was beautiful. Her clothes, what remained of them, marked her as someone important once. The tattered silk clung to curves that belonged on a goddess, not a condemned prisoner. Purple blood seeped from fresh wounds on her legs. Ancient blood, Spark whispered, almost reverently. Can you feel it, Richard? The resonance? Rick couldn't feel anything except the sudden, irrational urge to murder everyone between him and that post. Lord Reagan Mirax's voice boomed across the plaza, amplified by hidden speakers. The man himself stood on a floating platform above the crowd, his black and blue robes rippling with embedded energy crystals. Citizens of Argon, today we cleanse our world of the last tainted bloodline. Today we end the threat of the old dynasty forever. The crowd roared approval. Someone threw a piece of fruit that splattered against the woman's shoulder. She didn't flinch. Ilarisa of the Fallen House, Mirax continued, his silver eyes gleaming with satisfaction. You stand condemned for the crime of existing, for carrying the cursed genes that nearly destroyed our world. How do you plead? The woman, Ilarisa, smiled. Even from here, Rick could see it was all teeth and fury. I plead that you're a coward who hides behind laws written by dead men. Her voice carried without amplification, rich and strong despite her condition. I plead that you're so terrified of what I represent, you'd rather feed me to beasts than face me yourself. Brave words for dead royalty. Mirax gestured lazily. Release the Rexes. 2 massive gates ground open on either side of the platform. Rick had seen vids of Rexes, Pterosaurus's apex predators, all muscle and teeth and primal hunger. Seeing them in person was different. They moved like tanks made of flesh, each step shaking the platform. Their heads swiveled toward Elarisa, nostrils flaring at the scent of her blood. The crowd's roar became deafening. Money changed hands as bets were placed. How long would she last? 1 minute? 2? "Richard," Spark warned, "this is not our concern. The guards are still—" The first Rex lunged. Time slowed. Rick watched its massive jaws open, saw Elarisa try to dodge despite her chains, saw the inevitable trajectory that would tear her in half. The crowd leaned forward hungrily. The Rex's teeth found flesh. Elarisa's scream cut through the noise like a blade, and purple blood sprayed across the platform as the beast tore into her thigh. Rick's vision went red. No, not red. Silver. The ring blazed with light that had nothing to do with its usual power and everything to do with the fury boiling in Rick's chest. He was moving before conscious thought caught up, shoving through the crowd like they were wheat before a scythe. "Richard, what are you— Oh, bells and damnation, not again!" Rick reached the platform's edge and leaped. Not a normal jump. The ring's power coursed through him, launching him 20 feet up and forward. He landed on the platform in a crouch that cracked stone, directly between Elarisa and the approaching second Rex. The entire plaza went silent. Rick stood slowly, his back to the chained woman. The ring flowed over his hand like liquid metal, forming into a gauntlet that covered his entire right arm. Energy crackled between his fingers. "Hi there," he said conversationally to the Rex, which had frozen mid-stalk. "Nice day for an execution, isn't it? Good weather, enthusiastic crowd." He glanced at Lord Mirax, whose face had gone from smug to shocked. "Great speech, by the way. Really nailed that whole cartoon villain vibe." "Who dares?" Mirax began. "Rick Mason, human. Professional pain in the ass." Rick's voice dropped to something darker, more dangerous. "And here's the thing about humans. We've got this stupid habit of getting involved when we see something that pisses us off. And buddy?" He spread his arms wide, indicating the entire scene. This pisses me off." The wounded Rex behind him snarled, Elarisa's blood still dripping from its maw. Rick didn't turn around. "Touch her again," he said, loud enough for the entire plaza to hear, "and I'll burn this planet down." Someone in the crowd laughed nervously. The laugh died when Rick's gauntlet flared with power that made the air shimmer. "He's bluffing!" someone shouted. "Am I?" Rick finally turned, getting his first close look at Elarisa. Their eyes met. Hers were silver violet, wide with shock and pain and something else. Hope? No, too cynical for hope. Maybe just surprised that anyone gave a damn. Blood seeped steadily from the gash in her thigh. The wound was bad but not fatal. Yet. "I didn't ask for your help, Earthling," she said, voice strained but still defiant. "Good, because I'm not doing this for you." The lie came out automatic, programmed by years of not giving a shit. But something in her eyes, amusement, said she didn't buy it. "He's lying," Spark announced cheerfully, its voice now audible to everyone thanks to the plaza's acoustics. His heart rate suggests significant attraction, also mild dehydration and a concerning amount of adrenaline. "Shut up!" Rick hissed. The second Rex chose that moment to charge. Rick had fought a lot of things in his career. Pirates, mercenaries, one memorable evening with 3 Altarian berserkers who'd taken offense to his face. But he'd never fought a 2-ton predator specifically engineered to be a killing machine. The ring compensated for his lack of experience, flooding his system with enhanced reflexes and tactical data. Time slowed to a crawl. The Rex's charge became a series of predictable movements, weight distribution, muscle tension, angle of attack. Rick sidestepped at the last second, bringing his gauntleted fist down on the Rex's skull with enough force to crater steel. The beast's head slammed into the platform, cracking stone. It tried to rise, shaking its head groggily. "Stay down," Rick advised, then kicked it in the jaw with enhanced strength. The Rex flew backward, tumbling off the platform entirely. The crowd scattered as 2 tons of unconscious predator landed among them. The first Rex, the one that had tasted Elarisa's blood, circled warily now. It had seen its packmate defeated and recognized a new apex predator, but the blood scent was driving it mad with hunger. "Richard," Spark murmured, "incoming hostile at 7 o'clock." A guard's plasma bolt seared past Rick's ear. He spun, caught the next bolt on his gauntlet where it dispersed harmlessly, then returned fire with a concentrated burst of ring energy. The guard flew backward into 3 of his companions. More guards were climbing onto the platform. Rick counted 12, no, 15, plus the Rex, plus whatever other surprises Mirax had waiting. "Little busy here," he called to Elarisa. "Any chance you could—" The world went white. For a second, Rick thought someone had detonated a flash grenade. Then he realized the light was coming from behind him, from Elarisa. The Rex that had been stalking forward stumbled, pawing at its eyes, temporarily blinded. "I have my moments," Elarisa said, and despite the pain in her voice, Rick heard satisfaction too. He grinned, spinning to face the guards. "Spark, give me crowd control pattern 7. "That's the one where you almost died on Kepler Station." "That's the one where I almost died but didn't." Rick charged the nearest guard, sliding under a plasma burst to sweep the man's legs. As the guard fell, Rick grabbed his weapon, spun, and fired 3 precise shots that took down guards at range. The ring flared, creating an energy shield that absorbed return fire. The blind Rex stumbled toward the sound of combat. Rick grabbed a fallen guard and shoved him into the beast's path. The Rex's jaws closed on armor and flesh with a wet crunch. "Brutal," Spark commented. "Effective, but brutal. You want to file a complaint with HR?" More guards poured onto the platform. The crowd was screaming now, half trying to flee, half pressing closer for a better view. Lord Mirax remained on his floating platform, watching with an expression that had shifted from shock to calculation. Rick fought like a man possessed. Every trick he'd learned in 12 years of military service, every dirty move picked up in back alley brawls across 50 systems, all enhanced by the ring's power. He broke bones, shattered weapons, sent guards flying into each other or off the platform entirely. But there were too many. For every guard he dropped, 2 more appeared. The Rex was recovering from its blindness. And Elarisa. He risked a glance back. She sagged against the post, her light show having drained what little energy she had left. Blood pooled at her feet. Damn it! Rick blasted 2 more guards, then sprinted back to her. "How bad?" "Had worse," she lied through gritted teeth. Up close, he could see the wound was deeper than he'd thought. The Rex had hit an artery. "Sure you have." Rick touched the chains binding her. "Spark, can you—" "Energy locked. I'd need 30 seconds of uninterrupted contact to break them." 30 seconds? Rick looked at the approaching guards, the recovering Rex, the floating figure of Mirax. "Might as well ask for a vacation while you're at it." Elarisa's hand touched his arm. Her skin was cool, too cool. "Go. You've done enough. More than anyone else would have." "Yeah, well." Rick turned his back to her again, facing the encroaching threats. "I'm not anyone else." The guards had formed a semicircle, weapons trained on him. The Rex shook its massive head, orienting on their position. Above them all, Lord Mirax descended slowly, his robes billowing dramatically. "Impressive display, human." Mirax's voice carried easily across the plaza. "Tell me, do all Earthlings have such a death wish, or are you special?" "Little of column A, little of column B." Rick kept his gauntlet raised, energy crackling between his fingers. What's it going to be, Mirax? You want to dance, or are you going to hide behind your goon squad all day? Mirax smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Neither. You see, by interfering in a lawful execution, you've invoked something rather interesting. He gestured grandly. Citizens of Argon, witness. The human has defended the condemned in the arena of judgment. By our oldest laws, he has claimed her. The crowd murmured. Rick felt Elarisa stiffen behind him. Claimed her? Rick didn't like where this was going. As his bride, Mirax's smile widened. Congratulations, human. You're now bound by sacred law to the last daughter of the fallen dynasty. But wait. He held up a finger theatrically. The law is quite specific. To claim one sister is to claim them all. Sisters? Rick's enhanced hearing picked up Elarisa's sharp intake of breath. Oh yes. Did she not mention? 3 more of her tainted bloodline hide in our city. By defending her, you've claimed responsibility for all of them. Mirax spread his hands. So, Rick Mason of Earth, will you accept your claim and take responsibility for 4 enemies of the state, or will you reject it and watch them all die? Choose quickly. My Rex is hungry. Rick's mind raced. This was a trap, obviously. Accept, and he'd have a target on his back the size of a small moon. Refuse, and... He glanced back at Elarisa. She stared at him with those impossible eyes, blood still seeping from her wound. He saw the moment she understood what he was about to do, saw her lips form the word, "Don't." Rick turned back to Mirax and executed a mocking bow. Always wanted a big family. The plaza erupted. Some cheered, some booed, most just stared in shock. Mirax's smile turned predatory. Then by the ancient laws of Argon, I pronounce you bound. He gestured to the guards. Release the bride. Bring forth her sisters. Let all witness. The human has claimed the cursed blood. May he choke on it. The energy chains holding Elarisa flickered and died. She collapsed forward, and Rick caught her before she could hit the ground. She weighed less than her height suggested, or maybe the ring was enhancing his strength more than usual. You absolute idiot, she whispered against his chest. You have no idea what you've just done. Thursday for me, princess. Rick scooped her up, cradling her against him. Purple blood immediately soaked through his shirt. Spark, medical assessment. Severe laceration to the femoral artery. She needs immediate treatment or she'll bleed out in approximately 6 minutes. You hear that? Rick looked down at Elarisa, whose eyes were starting to flutter closed. No dying on me. We just got engaged. Be rude to widow me before the honeymoon. She managed a weak laugh. Your bedside manner is terrible. Yeah, well, you should see my cooking. Rick scanned the crowd, looking for threats, exits, anything useful. The guards had pulled back but kept their weapons ready. The Rex prowled the platform's edge like a house cat denied its toy. Where are your sisters? Safe, hidden. Her voice was fading. They'll come for them now, because of you. Let them try. Rick shifted her weight, keeping pressure on the wound with one hand. Spark, I need options. Medical facilities are 3 blocks north. However, given the armed guards, hostile crowd, and general atmosphere of impending violence, I calculate our odds of reaching them at approximately... Don't tell me the odds. Rick started walking toward the platform's edge. The crowd parted before him, unsure whether to attack or get out of the way. Just tell me which direction to run. North, but Richard, I know. Rick looked up at Mirax, who watched with amused satisfaction. This isn't over. No, Mirax agreed. It's just beginning. Enjoy your new family, human, however briefly you manage to keep them alive. Rick wanted to say something clever, something that would wipe that smug look off the dictator's face. But Elarisa's blood was coating his hands. Her breathing was getting shallow, and he'd just legally married himself to 4 alien women he'd never met in order to save them from execution. Spark was right. He really did have a death wish. "North it is," Rick muttered, and ran. Behind him, the crowd roared with excitement, bloodlust, and anticipation. The game had changed. The human had entered the arena, and in Rick's arms the last princess of a fallen dynasty bled purple onto his shirt while he ran through alien streets, chased by the echoes of his own stupid heroics and the certain knowledge that his life had just become infinitely more complicated. "Still think I'm lying about the attraction thing?" Spark asked smugly. "Shut up and navigate," Rick growled, but he held Elerisa a little tighter as he ran. The two sons of Pterosaurus beat down on them without mercy, and somewhere in the city, 3 more sisters waited to learn their fate had just been tied to a sarcastic human with a hero complex and a talking ring. Rick really should have taken that vacation on Altair Prime instead. Rick's boots hammered against stone as he burst through the safe house door, Elarisa's blood painting abstract patterns on his shirt. The underground hideout reeked of mold and desperation, fitting for the last sanctuary of a fallen dynasty. "Put her here!" A violet-skinned woman materialized from the shadows, all sharp angles and sharper eyes. She gestured to a medical table that had seen better decades. "Quickly, before she bleeds out all over our floor." Rick laid Elerisa down, noting how the woman hadn't asked who he was or why he was covered in royal blood. "You're one of the sisters." Leanna, the smart one. She was already cutting away Elarisa's ruined clothing with practiced efficiency. "You must be the idiot who just married us all." Charming family already. Rick stepped back as Leanna worked, pulling out medical supplies from hidden compartments. "Where are the others?" "Vera, get in here." Leanna didn't look up from her work. "Bring the cauterizer and tell Kayla to stop sharpening her knives. We're not killing him yet." 2 more women appeared. The younger one, Vera, presumably, couldn't have been more than 19 in Earth years. Her violet skin had an almost luminescent quality, and her rose-gold hair hung in elaborate braids. She clutched a medical device like a lifeline, eyes wide as she took in Rick's blood-soaked appearance. The other sister needed no introduction. Kayla moved like a predator, all coiled muscle and barely restrained violence. Scars crisscrossed her arms, and she held a wickedly curved blade with the casual comfort of long familiarity. "So," Kayla circled him slowly, "you're the human who thinks he can protect us." "No thinking about it, sweetheart." Rick kept his voice level despite his exhaustion. "Already did." The blade flashed. Rick's hand snapped up, the ring manifesting just enough armor to catch the strike. The impact rang through the small space. Kayla's eyes widened slightly. Surprise, not fear. "Your reflexes are adequate." "My reflexes are spectacular." Rick twisted, using her momentum to spin her into the wall. She recovered instantly, blade coming around in a lethal arc. He ducked, grabbed her wrist, and applied just enough pressure to make her drop the weapon. "My patience, however, is running thin." "Enough!" Leanna's voice cracked like a whip. "Kayla, if you kill our new husband, we all die. That's how the binding works. Rick, it is Rick, isn't it? Please don't break my sister's wrist. I'm busy trying to save the other one." Rick released Kayla, who stepped back with something that might have been respect in her eyes, or murder. Hard to tell. "How is she?" He moved closer to the table where Leanna worked. "Alive. Barely." Leanna's hands moved with surgical precision. The arteries sealed, but she lost too much blood. Vera, the accelerator. The youngest sister darted forward with another device. This close, Rick could see she was trembling. "First time seeing combat wounds?" he asked gently. Vera nodded, not trusting her voice. "She'll be fine. Your sister knows what she's doing." Rick watched Leanna work, impressed despite himself. Military trained? "Our mother insisted we all learn combat medicine." Lyanna's voice carried old pain. Said princesses who couldn't stitch wounds wouldn't survive to rule. Turned out she was half right. Your commentary is delightful, Spark interjected, but we have 17 hostiles converging on this location. 17? Rick was already moving. Time? 3 minutes, possibly less if they're using trackers. They're using trackers. Lyanna didn't look up. They always use trackers after an arena claiming. Kayla, already on it. The warrior sister scooped up her blade and headed for the door. Human, you coming? Or are Earthmen only good for dramatic entrances? Rick looked at Elarisa's still form, then at Lyanna. Can you move her? Not for at least an hour. The tissue regenerator needs time. Then we hold here. Rick followed Kayla up narrow stairs to the ground level. Spark, give me tactical. Converting. The ring flowed over his hand, forming a bracer with a holographic display. 17 hostiles in 3 groups. Standard Argon enforcement gear. 2 have heavy weapons. Just another Thursday. Rick checked the building's layout. 3 entrances, minimal cover, terrible defensive position. Your sister picked a shit safe house. It's kept us alive for 3 months. Kayla was already barricading the main door, longer than the last 4. You've been running for 3 months? We've been running for 3 years. She hefted a piece of furniture into place with disturbing ease. Ever since Mirax decided our bloodline was too dangerous to live. The first explosion shook dust from the ceiling. Breaching charge, Rick identified. North entrance. They're not subtle. Why be subtle when you have numbers? Kayla spun her blade in a pattern that looked more like art than combat preparation. How many can you handle? All of them. Rick headed for the north entrance. You take the retreat. Make sure they don't circle behind. The door exploded inward. Rick was already moving, the ring extending into full combat mode. The first enforcer through the breach met Rick's armored fist at roughly the speed of regret. The man's helmet cracked, and he dropped like a sack of unconscious potatoes. The second enforcer managed to raise his weapon. Rick grabbed the barrel, crushed it, then used the ruined gun to clothesline its owner. Number 3 got smart and tried to fall back. Rick's thrown knife, borrowed from a table he'd passed, convinced him to take a nap instead. Efficient, Spark commented, though your form on the throw could use work. Everyone's a critic. Rick ducked as plasma fire erupted from outside. The enforcers had regrouped, laying down suppressive fire while more moved to flank. Kayla, company coming your way. No response. Rick risked a glance back and saw why. Kayla was already engaged with 5 enforcers who'd breached the rear entrance. She moved like liquid murder, her blade singing through the air. One enforcer dropped, clutching his hamstrings. Another stumbled back with a broken nose. But more kept coming. This is unsustainable, Spark noted helpfully. You think? Rick grabbed a fallen enforcer's rifle, checked the charge, and laid down covering fire. We need to... The world exploded in silver light. For a moment, Rick thought another breaching charge had gone off. Then he realized the light was coming from downstairs, pouring up through cracks in the floorboards like liquid starlight. What the hell? Vera, Kayla gasped between strikes. When she's frightened enough, she... The light pulsed, and every piece of technology in the building died. Weapons, lights, even Spark flickered and went quiet. The enforcers stumbled in sudden darkness. Their high-tech gear turned to dead weight, but Kayla didn't need technology. Her blade found throats and tendons with lethal precision. Rick adapted quickly, muscle memory from 100 dirty fights taking over. He broke jaws, shattered ribs, used the dead rifle as a club until it bent beyond usefulness. The light faded as suddenly as it had appeared. Emergency lighting flickered on, revealing a room full of groaning, broken enforcers. "Everyone alive?" Rick called, disappointed but breathing. Kayla wiped her blade clean on a fallen enforcer's uniform. You fight like an Earthman. Thanks. It wasn't a compliment. Too much power, not enough grace. She headed back downstairs. But you survived, so perhaps there's hope. Rick followed, finding the medical room in chaos. Vera huddled in a corner, tears streaming down her face as residual light flickered under her skin. Leanna worked frantically on something sparking near the medical equipment. She fried everything, Leanna muttered. The regenerator, the monitors, all of it. I'm sorry, Vera whispered. I couldn't control it. When I heard the fighting, You saved us. Rick crouched beside her, careful not to touch. Energy still crackled around her like static. That EMP pulse took out their gear, gave us the edge we needed. Electromagnetic. Leanna looked up sharply. That wasn't electromagnetic. That was pure stellar energy. She channels raw starlight when threatened. Course she does. Rick stood, assessing the situation. Elarisa was still unconscious, but breathing steadily. The equipment was toast, but Leanna had already done the critical work. We need to move. More will come. Agreed. Leanna started packing medical supplies with efficient movements. There's another safe house in the factory district. Kayla, can you... Wait. Rick held up his hand. Something felt wrong. The ring was still quiet. Too quiet. Spark? Nothing. Your artifact. Vera's voice was small. Did I break it? Just knocked him offline. Rick hoped that was true. The ring still clung to his finger, warm but unresponsive. He'll recover, probably with lots of complaints. We don't have time for probably. Kayla was already gathering weapons from the fallen enforcers. Leanna, wake Eli. We move in 5 minutes. She needs rest. She needs to be alive. Kayla's tone brooked no argument. The binding makes her a target, but it also makes her valuable. Mirax won't kill her now. He'll want to study the marriage bond, see if he can use it, but only if he takes her alive. Leanna nodded grimly and injected something into Elarisa's neck. The eldest sister's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and dilated. Did we win? Her voice was barely a whisper. We survived. Rick helped her sit up, noting how she instinctively leaned into him. That's what we call winning on Earth. Low standards. She tried to stand, wobbled, and accepted his support with visible reluctance. Where? Factory district, Leanna answered. Can you walk? Do I have a choice? No. Elarisa's laugh was more breath than sound. Then I can walk. They moved through Argon's underbelly like ghosts. Kayla led, her knowledge of back alleys and maintenance tunnels keeping them away from main thoroughfares. Rick supported Elarisa, her weight negligible but her presence impossible to ignore. Every breath she took pressed her against his side. Every stumble brought her closer. Stop thinking so loud, she murmured after the third near fall. Wasn't thinking anything. Liar. Your whole body tenses every time I touch you. Despite her exhaustion, amusement colored her tone. Afraid of catching something from alien royalty? More afraid you'll bleed on my last clean shirt. This is your clean shirt? Standards really are low on Earth. Vera giggled, actually giggled, from behind them. It was such a normal sound in the middle of their insane situation that Rick almost laughed too. Focus! Leanna hissed. Guards ahead! They pressed into shadows as an enforcement patrol passed. 6 guards, heavily armed, clearly searching. One had a bioscanner that would pick them up in seconds if it swept their hiding spot. I can... Vera started. No. Leanna gripped her sister's hand. Not unless we have no choice. You're not trained for control, and another pulse that strong might... The scanner beeped. The guard turned toward their position. Rick was already moving, but Kayla was faster. She flowed from the shadows like liquid death, Blade finding the scanner first, the guard's throat second. The patrol scattered, shouting for backup, firing wildly into the dark. Go! Kayla danced between plasma bolts, drawing their fire. Factory district, don't wait! We're not leaving, Elarisa started. Go! Kayla's blade claimed another guard. I'll find you! Rick made the tactical decision, scooping Elarisa up despite her protests and running. Leanna grabbed Vera, and they sprinted through twisting alleys as plasma fire lit the night behind them. Put me down! Elarisa struggled weakly. We can't leave her. She's buying us time. Rick took a hard right, following Leanna's lead. We waste it. We insult her sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice. Elarisa's fist hit his chest with all the force of a butterfly. She always does this, always has to be the hero. Sounds familiar, Rick muttered. They reached the factory district as dawn painted the sky purple. The safe house was another abandoned building, but this one felt different, older. The walls thrummed with subtle energy. What is this place? Rick set Elarisa down carefully. Neutral ground. Leanna was already checking defensive positions. Old treaty site from before the fall. Even Mirax won't violate it without cause. Great. So we're safe? We're less likely to die immediately. Leanna's smile was sharp as her sister's blade. Welcome to married life, Earthman. Rick slumped against a wall, exhaustion hitting like a freight train. Elarisa settled beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. Her skin still felt too cool, but her breathing was steady. Thank you, she said quietly, for earlier, for all of it. Don't thank me yet. We're not out of this. No, but we're alive. She shifted, her head finding his shoulder like it belonged there. That's more than I expected when I woke up on that platform. Rick wanted to respond, but Spark chose that moment to reboot. Absolute electromagnetic nightmare. Do you have any idea what that did to my neural pathways? I haven't felt pain like that since, oh. The ring pulsed, taking in their position. I see we've progressed to cuddling. Should I start planning the honeymoon? We're already married, remember? Rick couldn't muster the energy to move away from Elarisa. This is the honeymoon. Worst honeymoon ever, Elarisa murmured against his shoulder. No beaches, no drinks with little umbrellas, and people keep trying to kill us. I don't know. The company's not bad. She lifted her head to look at him, those silver-violet eyes seeing too much. Careful, Earthman. Keep talking like that, and I might start believing you actually care. Perish the thought. Get a room, Leanna called from across the space. Oh wait, you're married. You can literally get any room you want now. Vera, organizing supplies in a corner, blushed purple-pink. Leanna. What? It's true. The marriage binding includes property rights. Leanna's clinical tone made it worse. They could claim any dwelling in Argon as their matrimonial suite. I prefer places where people aren't actively trying to murder me, Rick said. Then you married into the wrong family. Kayla's voice made them all jump. She stood in the doorway, blood on her blade, but a satisfied smirk on her face. All 6 guards down. We have maybe an hour before they're missed. You're hurt. Vera rushed to her sister, hands already glowing with that stellar light. Just scratches. But Kayla let Vera fuss over her, a softness entering her expression that Rick hadn't seen before. Save your strength, little star. We'll need it. For what? Rick asked. For when Mirax realizes we're not running anymore. Elarisa struggled to her feet, warrior princess despite her wounds. We've been prey for 3 years, but now we have something we didn't before. A suicidal Earthman? Leanna suggested. An edge. Elarisa looked at Rick, and he saw fire in those impossible eyes. Someone who doesn't know he's supposed to be afraid. Oh, I'm afraid. Rick stood, offering her support she pretended not to need. I'm just too stupid to let it stop me. Spark was right about one thing, Kayla observed, cleaning her blade. Your attraction is pathetically obvious. All part of my charm. Earthmen have charm? Leanna's tone suggested deep skepticism. We have our moments. Rick caught Elarisa as she swayed. We should rest, plan, figure out our next. The building shook. Not an explosion, something else. Something that made the ancient walls resonate like a struck bell. What was that? Vera whispered. Leanna was already at a window, face pale. Oh, ancestors help us. Rick joined her, Elarisa still leaning against him. In the distance, a section of the city was wrong. The air itself seemed to writhe, reality bending in ways that hurt to perceive. Is that a devourer? Elarisa's voice was hollow. It's starting, just like Mother always feared. But they're dormant, Leanna protested. The bloodline hasn't manifested in generations. We don't have the power. Vera does. Kayla's words fell like stones. Her light, it's not just stellar energy. It's the old power, the power that wakes them. They all turned to look at the youngest sister who stood frozen, residual light still dancing under her skin from healing Kayla. I didn't mean to, Vera whispered. I was just scared, and the light came and… It's not your fault. Elarisa pulled away from Rick, standing on her own despite the obvious cost. It's in our blood. Mother tried to hide it, suppress it, but fear brings it out. And tonight, we were all afraid. So what do we do? Rick asked. We run, Lyanna said immediately. Get off planet before… No. Elarisa's tone carried the authority of generations of queens. We've run enough. If the devourers are waking because of us, then we stop them. Stop them? Kayla laughed, but there was no humor in it. Eli, they're planet killers. Even the old empire barely contained them. The old empire didn't have him. Elarisa looked at Rick. Or that. Rick felt Spark pulse on his finger. The ring had been suspiciously quiet since rebooting. Something you want to share with the class, he asked it. I remember her. Spark's voice was different, uncertain. Not Elarisa, her grandmother, my first bearer. She bound the devourers before, but the cost… What cost? Leanna demanded. Everything. The ring's light dimmed. She gave everything, and I couldn't save her. But perhaps with the right bearer and the bloodline reunited. Perhaps is a shit battle plan, Rick said. It's the only one we have. Elarisa faced him and he saw fear there, but also determination. So, husband, you jumped into an arena to save a stranger. Will you help us save a world? Rick looked at her, bloodied, exhausted but unbroken. Looked at her sisters, the brilliant strategist, the deadly warrior, the young woman with starfire in her veins. His life had been simpler yesterday. Emptier, but simpler. Well, he said finally, I've made worse decisions, usually while drunk, but still. Is that a yes? Vera asked hopefully. That's a why the hell not? We're all probably going to die anyway. Rick flexed his fingers, feeling Spark's presence like a second heartbeat. But if we're doing this, we do it my way. No more running, no more hiding. We hit back. With what army? Leanna asked. Don't need an army. Rick grinned, the expression all teeth. Just need the right pressure points, and I'm betting Lord Mirax has plenty of those. You want to blackmail the dictator while reality is collapsing. Kayla sounded almost impressed. I want to make him help us. Rick moved to the window, studying the distant wrongness in the air. He knows more than he's saying. About the devourers, about your bloodline, about why he really killed your parents. We need that information. He'll never… Leanna started. He will. Elarisa joined Rick at the window. Because if he doesn't, we all die. Even dictators prefer living to ruling ashes. Plus, Rick added, I really want to punch him in his smug face. Romantic and practical, Spark commented. No wonder she's attracted to you. Shut up, Rick and Eloisa said in unison. Despite everything, the danger, the exhaustion, the cosmic horror awakening in the distance, Vera giggled again. Even Kayla cracked a smile. So, Leanna said, tactical mind already working. How do we get close to the most protected man on the planet without dying? Easy? Rick turned from the window, meeting each sister's gaze in turn. We let him come to us. And why would he do that? Rick held up his ring hand. Spark pulsed with anticipation. Because he wants this, has wanted it for years, and now that it's bonded to your bloodline, Rick's grin widened. He'll come running. That's insane, Leanna said. That's Tuesday, Rick corrected. Now, let's talk about how we're going to save this planet and probably die trying. But first, he looked at Eloisa, whose color was fading again. First, we get my wife somewhere she can rest without bleeding on my last clean shirt. Still not clean, Eloisa murmured, but she let him guide her to a makeshift bed Vera was already preparing. As Rick helped her settle, she caught his hand. Why? She asked quietly. Really? Why did you jump into that arena? Rick considered lying, making a joke, being the smart-ass merc who didn't care about anything. But something in her eyes demanded truth. Because I've spent 12 years watching good people die for stupid reasons. His voice was low, meant only for her. And for once, just once, I wanted to be the reason someone lived instead. Her fingers tightened on his. Careful, Rick Mason. Keep saying things like that, and I might start thinking you're a hero. Definitely not that. He squeezed back gently. Just a man with bad timing and worse judgment. My favorite kind, she whispered, eyes already closing. Rick stayed until her breathing evened out, then joined the others in planning the impossible. Outside, reality continued to fray at the edges. The Devourer was stirring, Mirax was hunting them, and he was married to 4 alien sisters who might be the key to saving or dooming an entire world. Spark pulsed contentedly on his finger. This is much more interesting than Altair Prime would have been. For once, Rick couldn't argue. The ritual circle glowed with ancient power as Vera's hands trembled above the crystalline formation. Rick stood guard at the perimeter, watching purple-skinned civilians flee through Argon streets while reality twisted overhead like a wound in the sky. Steady, little star. Eloisa knelt beside her youngest sister, their combined light casting dancing shadows. Remember what Mother taught us. Fear feeds them, but control starves them. Easy for you to say. Vera's voice cracked. You're not the one who woke it up. We all woke it up. Leanna adjusted the power crystals with mathematical precision. Our bloodline, our responsibility, now focus. Kayla prowled the circle's edge, blade drawn. We've got movement, 3 blocks out and closing. Mirax? Rick asked. His entire damn army. She spat. So much for neutral ground. Rick checked his weapons, 2 stolen plasma rifles, 3 knives, and Spark humming with barely contained violence on his finger. How long do you need? 20 minutes, Leanna said. Maybe 30 if... The building exploded, not from conventional weapons, from pure directed will. Lord Mirax descended through the shattered roof like an angry god, his crystalline robes blazing with stolen power. Behind him, enforcement troops rappelled down on gravity lines. Did you think I'd let you complete a binding ritual? Mirax's silver eyes locked on Vera. The child who woke the Devourer, trying to put it back to sleep? That's not how this works. Rick stepped between them, rifle raised. Back off, Chrome Dome. We're trying to save your city. My city is already lost. Mirax gestured and Rick's weapons crumbled to dust. The moment she awakened that thing, we all became walking dead. The only question is whether we die as martyrs or monsters. False dichotomy. Leanna didn't look up from her calculations. There's always a third option. Spoken like your mother. Mirax's expression twisted. She thought she was clever too, right until Kayla's blade whispered through the air where his throat had been. Mirax flowed backward, energy crackling between his fingers. Touchy subject. He unleashed a blast that sent Kayla flying. Good. Anger makes this easier. Stop! Vera's control shattered. Light erupted from her in waves, each pulse making the Devourer's presence overhead grow stronger. The ritual circle flickered, failing. Yes, Mirax breathed. Feed it, child. Show them what your bloodline really means. Rick moved without thinking. The ring flared, extending into full armor as he tackled Mirax. They crashed through the weakened floor, trading blows that shattered stone and bent steel. Mirax fought with centuries of experience, but Rick had something better, absolute disregard for his own safety. You think you're saving them? Mirax caught Rick's armored fist, energy coursing between them. I've spent lifetimes keeping that thing dormant. You've undone it all in a single day. Good! Rick headbutted him, helmet ringing against crystal. Your system sucked anyway. Above them, Vera screamed. The sound wasn't quite human. It resonated with frequencies that made reality hiccup. Through the hole in the floor, Rick saw the ritual circle collapse entirely. The Devourer's attention turned fully toward them, a presence so vast it made thought difficult. Now you've done it, Spark commented. It's fully manifested. Estimated time until total consumption of the city, 12 minutes. Then we've got 11 minutes to figure something out. Rick rolled aside as Mirax's blast carved a furrow in the floor. Any bright ideas? 1. Elarisa's voice cut through the chaos. She stood at the crater's edge, blazing with silver light that made Rick's eyes water. But you're not going to like it. When do I ever? She smiled, actually smiled, in the middle of apocalyptic chaos. Fair point. Mirax, you want to die as a martyr? Here's your chance. Help us, or we all burn together. Help you? Mirax laughed, the sound sharp as breaking glass. After everything, the Devourer struck. Not physically. It didn't need to. Its attention focused on their location like a magnifying glass channeling sunlight. The building simply ceased. One moment walls and ceiling, the next open air and swirling nothingness. Rick grabbed a structural beam as gravity went sideways, catching Vera as she tumbled past. Got you! She clung to him, tears streaming. I can't stop it. The light just keeps coming and... Then don't stop it. Rick made a decision that would have been insane 5 minutes ago. Now it just felt necessary. Spark, can you channel her power through me? That would likely kill you. Not asking for a life expectancy report. Can you do it? The ring pulsed, considering. Theoretically. But the energy signature is incompatible with... Make it compatible. Rick looked up at Elarisa, who was pulling Lyanna and Kayla to safety with tendrils of solid light. You said it yourself. Sometimes there's more than one worthy bearer. Understanding dawned in the artifact's consciousness. You want me to split my essence, bond with both of you, unless you've got a better idea. For the first time in their partnership, Spark sounded genuinely uncertain. I've only done this once, with her grandmother and her consort. They died saving this world. Then let's try not to repeat that part. Rick shifted Vera to safer ground, then stood. Mirax, you want to live? Then fight with us instead of against us. The Devourer pressed closer, reality warping like melted plastic. Buildings twisted into impossible shapes. The sky bled purple light. And in the center of it all, Rick saw its true form, not a creature but a concept given hunger. It existed to consume, to reduce everything to nothing, to enforce entropy with prejudice. You can't fight that, Mirax said, but his certainty wavered. It's not alive. It's the opposite of life. Then we give it something it can't eat. Elarissa descended to stand beside Rick. Spark, make your choice. Bond with us both, or watch us all die trying anyway. The ring burned on Rick's finger. Very well, but if this kills you both, I'm going to be extremely put out. Noted. Rick held out his hand to Elarissa. Ready for the worst honeymoon activity ever? I thought that was meeting my sisters. Close second. Their fingers intertwined. Spark's essence flowed between them, splitting like light through a prism. Rick felt his consciousness expand, touching Elarissa's mind, her fear, her determination, her absolutely inappropriate attraction to his stupid jokes. She felt him too, the loneliness he hid behind sarcasm, the guilt that drove him to save others, the way his heart had stopped when he first saw her on that platform. Well, she managed, this is intimate. Later, Rick gasped as Vera's power flooded through their shared connection. Right now, we need to... Challenge it, Mirax interrupted. He stood apart but ready, his stolen crystals dim beside their blazing light. The old texts speak of champions who face the devourers in single combat, not physical, spiritual, will against hunger. Great, how? You call it out. Mirax's smile was bitter. And pray it accepts. Rick looked at Elarissa, seeing his own thoughts reflected in her eyes. Terrible idea. Probably fatal. No other choice. Together? She asked. Wouldn't have it any other way. They turned to face the devourer, hands still linked, power coursing between them. Rick gathered every ounce of bravado he'd ever possessed and projected his voice across the dying city. Hey, ugly. The name's Rick Mason, and I'm the reason you woke up cranky. How about we skip the foreplay and get to the main event? You and me. Let's dance. The devourer paused. The entire city held its breath as that impossible consciousness turned its full attention on them. When it spoke, the words bypassed ears entirely, appearing directly in their minds. Acceptable. Reality folded. One moment they stood in ruins, the next they were nowhere, everywhere. Inside the devourer's essence, where thought became substance and substance became nothing. Okay, Rick said, his voice echoing strangely. This is new. Stay close. Elarissa's grip tightened. Around them, fragments of devoured worlds swirled, memories of civilizations consumed, billions of lives reduced to echoes. Don't let go. Wasn't planning to. The devourer manifested before them, not a shape but a presence, vast and patient and absolutely certain of their failure. It had consumed champions before. Heroes, villains, gods, all fell to entropy in the end. You offer yourselves as sacrifice? We offer ourselves as opponents. Elarissa's light blazed brighter. Face us and fall, or flee and prove your weakness. If nothingness could laugh, it did. I do not flee. I simply wait. All things come to me in time. Yeah, about that. Rick stepped forward, dragging Elarissa with him. See, we're humans. Well, I'm human. She's complicated. Point is, we're really bad at waiting. He raised their joined hands, Spark's power flowing between them in impossible patterns. So how about we skip to the end? They struck together, not with fists or weapons, but with will itself. Rick poured everything into the assault, every life he'd saved, every wrong he'd tried to right, every moment of stupid heroism that had brought him here. Elarissa matched him, her heritage blazing forth, generations of queens who'd stood against darkness, who'd chosen hope over fear. The devourer recoiled, not in pain, but in surprise. Impossible. You are finite. I am eternal. Wrong. Vera's voice echoed through their connection. Back in reality, her sisters had joined hands around her, channeling their combined will through the link. You're old. We're new. You're alone. We're together. Also, Leanna added with clinical precision, you're predictable. Entropy always is. But life adapts. Life fights, Kayla snarled. Life loves, Elarisa whispered, and Rick felt the truth of it burn between them. The devourer pressed closer, its certainty reasserting. Love dies. Hope fails. All things end. Maybe. Rick grinned, the expression fierce. But not today. He did something incredibly stupid. He let go of Elarisa's hand and stepped into the devourer's core. Rick! Her scream followed him into nothingness. Inside was worse than death. It was the absence of possibility, the certainty of ending, the weight of infinite loss. Rick felt himself dissolving, his consciousness scattered across eons of consumption. But he'd come prepared. Spark, he whispered. Now. The ring detonated. Not with fire or force, but with pure creative potential. Every joke Rick had ever made, every laugh he'd drawn from others, every moment of defiant joy in the face of despair, it all erupted outward, poisoning the devourer's certainty with chaotic possibility. The entity convulsed. What have you done? Given you indigestion. Rick reformed, battered but whole. Turns out hope's harder to digest than you thought. Elarisa blazed into existence beside him, having followed despite the danger. You absolute idiot. You're absolute idiot, he corrected, catching her as she swayed, legally binding and everything. She kissed him. In the heart of cosmic horror, surrounded by nothingness and dissolution, she kissed him like the universe depended on it. Maybe it did. When they broke apart, the devourer had changed. Still vast, still hungry, but no longer certain. Doubt had infected its core, the possibility that perhaps, sometimes, things didn't end. Now, Elarisa breathed against his lips. While it's vulnerable. They struck again, together this time. Not to destroy. Destruction was the devourer's nature, not theirs. Instead, they offered it something else, a choice. You don't have to be only hunger, Elarisa said, her voice carrying royal authority across impossible spaces. You can be patience, guardian, the pause between heartbeats instead of the final breath. Work with us, Rick added, or spend eternity choking on hope. Your call. The devourer writhed, its nature warring with new possibilities. In the real world, Mirax watched the entity's form flicker, stabilize, flicker again. By the ancestors, he breathed. They're actually doing it. They need more. Leanna's voice strained with effort. The binding won't hold unless someone anchors it. Mirax closed his eyes, seeing the path clearly for the first time in decades. Someone with enough stolen power to lock the cage. He stepped forward, placing his hands on Vera's shoulders. The youngest sister gasped as his crystals blazed to life. What I should have done years ago. Power flowed from him into their circle, centuries of accumulated energy freely given. Tell your sister. Tell her I remembered my oath. Eventually. Inside the devourer, Rick and Elarisa felt the shift. External power flooded in, not to attack but to offer structure. The entity's form solidified, its hunger contained within bounds of purpose. This is not death. No, Elarisa agreed. It's transformation. Growth, Rick added. Really painful, awkward growth, like puberty but for cosmic horrors. Even dissolving in fundamental nothingness, she laughed. Do you ever stop joking? Not if I can help it. The devourer made its choice. Reality snapped back like a rubber band. Rick and Elarisa tumbled onto cracked stone, their shared light fading to merely brilliant. Above them, the wound in the sky closed, leaving only a faint scar where the entity had touched their world. But it hadn't gone. Rick could feel it, distant but present, a guardian between spaces, hungry still but purposeful. It would devour threats to this reality, consume things that should not be, a cosmic antibody instead of a cancer. "We did it," Elarisa breathed. "We actually—" "Mirax!" Vera's cry cut through their moment. They scrambled upright to find the dictator collapsed. His crystalline robes cracked and dim. He'd poured everything into the binding, leaving himself an empty vessel. "Predictable," he whispered as Elarisa knelt beside him. "Always was too dramatic for my own good. You saved us all." "Saved myself." His silver eyes found hers. "Your mother would be proud. Tell her, when you see her—" "I will." Mirax smiled, a real expression, free of mockery or cruelty. Then he was gone, dissolved into motes of light that drifted upward like inverse snow. Silence settled over the ruins. Then, distantly, they heard it, cheering. The city had witnessed everything through broadcasts and failing networks. They'd seen their tyrant's sacrifice, their princess's return, and a human's insane challenge to entropy itself. "So," Kayla said, breaking the moment with typical pragmatism, "who's running this place now?" "Not me," Rick said immediately. "I don't do politics. The eldest has the strongest claim." Leanna looked at Elarisa. "The city's yours if you want it." Elarisa stood slowly, still leaning on Rick. Around them, citizens began to gather, violet-skinned faces filled with hope and uncertainty. "Together," she decided. "We rule together. 4 sisters, united." She glanced at Rick, and one very stubborn human husband. "About that," Rick started. "You're not getting out of it now." She smiled, the expression transforming her battle-worn features. "You're stuck with us." "All of us," Vera added cheerfully. "It's a package deal." "The worst deal in the galaxy," Kayla agreed. "Statistically improbable to survive," Leanna concluded. Rick looked at them, 4 alien sisters who'd become his family in the span of days. His life had been simpler before, emptier, lonelier, but simpler. "Spark?" he asked. "You still alive in there?" "Distributed but functional," the ring replied from both his hand and Elarisa's. "This is highly irregular. I'm essentially married to myself now." "Join the club." Rick pulled Elarisa closer. "So, Your Majesty, what's the plan?" "First, we rebuild." She gestured to the city around them. "Then, we prepare. That thing we bound, it was just one devourer. There are others out there." "Others?" Rick groaned. "Of course there are." "Scared?" "Terrified. When do we start?" She laughed. Really laughed, the sound carrying across the plaza and making hardened citizens stop and stare. Their princess could laugh. After everything, she could still laugh. "How about tomorrow?" she suggested. "Tonight, I think we've earned a rest." "And a shower," Rick muttered. "And possibly several drinks. I know just the place." She tugged him toward the palace, her sisters falling into step around them. "Former dictator's mansion. I hear it's under new management." Hours later, they stood on the palace's highest balcony, watching Pterosaurus's twin suns set over a city that was broken but not beaten. Elarisa leaned against the railing, Rick beside her, their hands intertwined by habit now more than necessity. "You really would have burned the whole planet for me?" she asked, echoing their first meeting. "Princess, I'd burn the whole galaxy." Rick turned to face her. "But, lucky for everyone, you're worth saving instead." Smooth talker. But she was smiling. "So what now? You could leave, you know. Take your ring and find a nice, safe planet without devourers or royal drama or you." Rick shook his head. "Not a chance. I told you. Worst honeymoon ever, but the company makes up for it." "If you two are done being disgustingly romantic," Spark interjected from both their hands. "There are 12 other planets with similar problems. Shall I compile a list?" "Shut up," they said in unison, then looked at each other and laughed. "One planet at a time," Elarisa decided. "But first—" "First?" She pulled him close, violet skin warm against his. "First, I teach you to fly." "Fly?" Old royal secret. Light gathered around her, forming wings of pure energy. "The bloodline comes with benefits. Think you can handle it?" "Only one way to find out." Spark sighed dramatically but complied, shaping Rick's armor into matching wings. They stood at the balcony's edge, an impossible drop below, an impossible future ahead. "Together?" Elarisa asked. "Wouldn't have it any other way." They jumped. For a moment they fell, two hearts defying gravity through will alone. Then their wings caught air and light, sending them soaring over a city that was learning to hope again. "Where to?" Rick called over the wind. "Wherever needs saving," Elarisa replied. "Think the galaxy's ready for us?" "Not even close." They flew toward the horizon, leaving trails of silver and gold against the darkening sky. Behind them, three sisters watched from the balcony, planning a future that suddenly seemed possible. And somewhere in the spaces between, a devourer that had learned to choose kept watch, hungry still but purposeful. It had tasted hope and found it indigestible. Now it would ensure nothing threatened the source of that impossible flavor. The galaxy had no idea what was coming. Rick wouldn't have it any other way. Epilogue. 3 months later, on a world where the stars burned blue and the dead were rising, a familiar figure watched from the shadows as reality began to tear. "So," the watcher murmured, ancient eyes tracking the devourer's approach, "the bloodline survives after all, and they've tamed one of the hungry ones." A smile crossed features that hadn't changed in millennia. "Time to see if they can handle two." The figure stepped into the light, revealing violet skin lined with silver scars and eyes that held the weight of eternity. "Hello, granddaughters. I've been waiting." The real game was about to begin.